This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The Trump administration says it will pay immigrants in the U.S. illegally to voluntarily return to their home country. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A guilty plea in connection with the death of inmate Robert Brooks, Julie Walker, New York.
President Trump says he has a productive meeting with the president of Turkey. I'm Clayton Neville.
A coalition has filed a lawsuit challenging President Trump pausing federal approvals, permits, and loans for wind energy. I'm Jennifer King.
Yemen's Houthis have vowed to continue attacks on Israeli airports. I'm Karen Chavez.
The 10th time was not the charm on Wall Street. Stocks snapped their winning streak. I'm Jill Schneider.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has directed the active military to shed 20% of its four-star general officers. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The Trump administration announces plans to pay illegal immigrants who willingly leave the country. Correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
The Homeland Security Department says it would give those immigrants $1,000 plus travel money, adding it's already paid for a plane ticket for one immigrant to head from Chicago to Honduras. The Trump administration's portrayed self-deportation as a way for migrants to preserve the chance of one day returning to the U.S.
They can come back in if they're good people, if they're the kind of people that we want in our company, industrious people that could love our country. And if they're not, they won't.
One immigration advocacy group says migrants should be cautious about the latest offer and suggests the administration's offering money for them to leave on their own because it's unable to arrest and remove as many as it wants. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
One of the 10 corrections officers charged in the beating death of Robert Brooks inside a New York prison has pled guilty. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
A guilty plea in connection with the death of inmate Robert Brooks, whose brutal beating while in handcuffs at the Marcy Correctional Facility in upstate New York was recorded by officers' body cams in December. Prison guard Christopher Walrath was one of several charged. He pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. Brooks' son, Robert Brooks Jr., was there.
This is great to hear that someone is actually going to go to jail for a crime that they committed. So I'm enlightened, and I'm looking forward to the other individuals to face jail time, and that's what real justice looked like.
The deal calls for the prison guard to get a 15-year sentence. Brooks had been serving a 12-year sentence for assault for stabbing his girlfriend. Julie Walker, New York.
President Trump continues to meet with world leaders about multiple wars overseas. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
President Trump said he had a productive call with the president of Turkey on Monday. According to Trump, the two world leaders spoke about a range of topics, including the war between Russia and Ukraine. He added that he's looking forward to working with Turkey to end the, quote, ridiculous but deadly Russia-Ukraine war. The president shared details of the meeting on Truth Social, saying they discussed all things Syria, Gaza, and more. He said he's been invited to Turkey and that President Erdogan will come here. The two worked together during Trump's first administration, and Trump pointed out that Turkey was critical in returning Pastor Andrew Brunson to the U.S. after being imprisoned. Trump said there's urgency to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. I'm Clayton Neville.
Taking the wind out of the sails of alternative energy. We'll have that and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Potential severe weather on the horizon today. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
We are continuing to watch two large and impactful storm systems across the U.S. today, starting with the storm in the southwest that brought heavy rain and severe weather to portions of eastern New Mexico and Texas yesterday, as well as snow through a good portion of the Intermountain region. Today, this feature is going to shift into the central and southern plains with additional showers and some heavy, gusty thunderstorms from it. The best chance for these storms will once again be across Texas, especially in the central and eastern parts of the state, but will also expand into southern Oklahoma and southern Arkansas, Louisiana, and western Mississippi. There will be heavy rain, damaging winds, and hail with these storms. Outside of the severe weather, steady rain, sometimes heavy rain, will cover the rest of Oklahoma into southern Kansas and southeast Colorado. And as before, to the west of this large system, there'll be showers that will develop in the Four Corners region as far north as Wyoming, with some snow likely in the central Rockies. The eastern storm will once again provide showers and thunderstorms through most of the eastern Great Lakes into eastern Kentucky and as far south as the Chesapeake Bay and as far north as New England. Here, too, a few stronger storms will develop in Pennsylvania into central New York, with hail and damaging winds being the main concern. Areas have already been hit with heavy rain, and today's rain could lead to some flash flooding. In between these two systems, it is going to be largely dry from the northern plains into the western Great Lakes and then continuing into the southeast with plenty of sunshine. That's the weather across America. In Boulder, Colorado, it will be a cool day with periods of rain and a rumble of thunder with a high of just 50. It'll be a little warmer in Baltimore, Maryland, but there will still be some showers and thunderstorms with a high of 75. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A group of attorneys general are suing the Trump administration over plans to slow down wind energy projects. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
State attorneys general from 17 states and D.C. say the president does not have the authority to unilaterally shut down the process and put projects in jeopardy. Massachusetts has 3 offshore wind projects in various stages. The administration shut down a Norwegian-owned project in New Jersey that was 7 years in the making and 30% complete. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who's leading the group, says the directive is delaying the transition away from fossil fuels that harm our health and our planet. In a statement to the Associated Press, White House spokesperson Taylor Rogers says the Democratic officials are using lawfare to stop the president's popular energy agenda. Monday's lawsuit asked a federal judge in Massachusetts to stop federal agencies from implementing Trump's order. I'm Jennifer King.
Israel's cabinet has reached a decision on the future of Gaza. Here's a follow-up from correspondent Karen Shamas.
Yemen's Houthis have vowed to continue attacks on Israeli airports after a missile launched by the Iranian-backed rebels on Sunday briefly halted flights and commuter traffic at Israel's main international airport. Houthi military spokesman Brigadier General Yahya Sari made the remarks in a video statement. Israel's paramedic service said 4 people were lightly wounded. The attack on Ben Gurion International Airport came hours before Israeli cabinet ministers voted to take over the whole of Gaza and stay there indefinitely. The Yemeni general also issued a warning to airlines that they would carry out repeated targeting of Ben Gurion, Israel's main gateway to the world. He said international carriers should cancel all their flights to the airports of what he called the criminal Israeli enemy in order to safeguard the safety of their aircraft and passengers. Yemen's Houthis have targeted Israel since October 2023 in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Over 52,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed by Israeli forces since then, according to Gaza's health ministry. I'm Karen Shamas.
Trump wants only movies made in the U.S. That part of business headlines when America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Jill Schneider is in for CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with a look at how markets will react this morning.
Wall Street opens lower Tuesday after stocks ended a 9-day winning streak as investors monitored the latest developments on global trade. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CNBC Monday that, quote, "We're very close to some deals," echoing comments from President Trump on Sunday that accords could come as early as this week. He also spoke about the president's plan for economic growth.
The way to do it smartly, we're talking about bringing the deficit down by about 100 basis points every year for 4 years, get us back to the long-term average of 3.5%. And then a big cure for the deficit is upward growth shock. So CBO scoring is at 1.7 or 1.8% growth, no matter whether you have a tax cut or a tax hike. So we think that through deregulation, the permanence of the tax bill, we can get growth closer to something that looks like 3%.
Bessent spoke with CNBC after giving remarks at the Milken Institute Global Conference. Shares in some streaming services slid after President Trump proposed 100% tariffs on movies made outside the United States. Trump called the tax incentives offered by foreign countries, quote, a national security threat. As uncertainty over Trump's tariffs continue, Citi CEO Jane Fraser says many companies in the U.S. are in a wait-and-see mode.
There is still activity, but things, investment spending, some of the hiring plans, some of those have slowed down or are on pause, and that will have an impact on demand. And then we will have the actual impact of the tariffs themselves, which will come through either in terms of price impact and some potential shocks there, as well as the actual supply. And we don't know yet whether that's going to be 10% tariff, 25% tariff, or even higher.
We heard from Ford Motor Company late Monday. The automaker beat Wall Street first quarter expectations, but suspended its 2025 financial guidance amid an expected $2.5 billion impact this year from President Trump's tariffs. Skechers soared more than 24% as the company announced it's going private. The footwear giant has agreed to be acquired by private equity firm 3G Capital. The company will pay $63 per share in cash for Skechers, a 30% premium to the company's current valuation. The Dow dropped 98 points, about 0.25%. The S&P lost 36 points, and the Nasdaq was lower by 133 points, about 0.75%. On the watch list, President Trump will welcome newly elected Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to the White House on Tuesday. The two nations are expected to discuss trade and their relationship. Before the opening bell, we'll get earnings from Marriott and DoorDash. After the bell, we'll hear from Electronic Arts, Wynn Resorts, and Advanced Micro Devices. And it's day one of the two-day Federal Reserve meeting.
CNBC's Jill Schneider. The Pentagon has announced plans to make major cuts in military leadership. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer has details.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has directed the active military to shed 20% of its four-star general officers as the Trump administration continues to push the services to streamline their top leadership positions, including the National Guard.
General and flag officer reductions. That's the official title. My title is less generals, more GIs.
Hegseth has also directed the military to shed an additional 10% of its general and flag officers across the force, which could include any one-star or above or equivalent Navy rank. Hegseth says,
we're going to shift resources from bloated headquarters elements to our warfighters.
I'm Lisa Dwyer.
When we return on America in the Morning, holy smoke, the wait continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Ahead of the conclave to decide a new pope, Vatican staff are taking a vow of secrecy. Correspondent Tricia Thomas has details.
The Vatican is holding an oath-taking ceremony for those people who will be working inside the conclave bubble. These people include special technicians who, if needed, can come in and help the cardinals make sure they get the right chemicals so we either see a black smoke if no pope is elected or a white smoke if a new pope has been chosen. It also includes the drivers of the vans that will shuttle the cardinals back and forth from the Santa Marta residence to the Sistine Chapel. It includes elevator operators. We also have nurses and doctors who are part of the team to help the cardinals if they have any medical issues. There will be confessors. Then there will be the whole team over at the Santa Marta residence, including the cooks, the serving people, and the cleaning people. So a lot of people, and they will also have to stay inside the Vatican, inside the Santa Marta residence and around there to make sure they can be on hand 24 hours a day. Now, they have to swear to total secrecy, and they are not allowed to use any audio or video devices, or they will be automatically excommunicated. Tricia Thomas at the Vatican.
A decorated U.S. Olympian has been awarded new medals after his were lost during the recent L.A. wildfires. Correspondent Gethin Coolbaugh has the story.
After all of swimming great Gary Hall Jr.'s Olympic medals were destroyed in the Los Angeles fires, he set an unexpected record replacing them at IOC headquarters. 10 Olympic medals awarded to one athlete on the same day. 5 golds, 3 silvers, and 2 bronzes earned swimming for the United States at 3 summer games from 1996 to 2004. Hall Jr. says at the International Olympic Committee ceremony for him in Switzerland, quote, "I'll do a better job taking care of these." The originals burned in January at his home in the Pacific Palisades area of L.A. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, May 6th, 2025 is produced by Alexander Henson. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Incentives for illegal migrants to leave the U.S. voluntarily. I'm Clayton Neville.
A new effort to stop the cuts at the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm Rich Johnson.
A prison inmate died at the hands of prison guards. The first prison guard has made his plea. I'm Katie Clark with details.
About 3,000 labor union members at engine maker Pratt & Whitney in Connecticut have gone on strike. I'm Mike Hempen.
Cabinet members' messaging apps were hacked. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. At the National Weather Map, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
There are 2 major storm systems we are watching across the U.S. today. The eastern storm will once again provide showers and thunderstorms through most of the eastern Great Lakes, in eastern Kentucky, and as far south as the Chesapeake Bay, and as far north as New England. Here, too, a few stronger storms will develop in eastern Pennsylvania into central New York, with hail and damaging winds being the main concern. And areas have already been hit with heavy rain, and today's rain could lead to some flash flooding concerns as well. And the storm in the southwest. It brought heavy rain and severe weather to portions of eastern New Mexico into Texas, as well as rain and snow through a good portion of the Intermountain region yesterday. Today, this feature will continue to shift into the central and southern plains with additional showers and some heavy gusty thunderstorms from it. The best chance for severe thunderstorms will once again be across Texas, especially in the central and eastern parts of the state, but also expand into southern Oklahoma and then through southern Arkansas, Louisiana, and western Mississippi. There'll be heavy rain, damaging winds, and hail with these storms. And outside of the severe weather, rain, sometimes heavy, will cover the rest of Oklahoma into southern Kansas and southeast Colorado. And as before, the large system will continue to cause showers in the Four Corners region and as far north as Wyoming, with some snow likely in the Rockies. In between these two systems, from the northern plains through the western Great Lakes into the southeast, it will be largely dry with some amount of sunshine. The highs will be ranging from the 60s to the 80s in the northern plains, with 70s and 80s in the southeast. And the west coast will be largely dry today with sunshine and afternoon temperatures in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. The Trump administration is rolling out incentives for illegal immigrants to leave the United States on their own. Correspondent Clayton Neville files this report.
President Trump floated the idea of the self-deportations last month.
And we're going to make it comfortable for people, and we're going to work with those people to come back into our country legally.
He previewed the plan with Fox Noticias.
We're going to give them a stipend. We're going to give them some money and a plane ticket. And then we're going to work with them. If they're good, if we want them back in, we're going to work with them to get them back in as quickly as we can.
The Department of Homeland Security announced this week the Trump administration will offer a $1,000 stipend and travel assistance to migrants who choose to voluntarily self-deport from the U.S. The administration says the stipend and cost of a plane ticket would cost less than the actual deportation process, which includes food and sits currently at about $17,000. DHS said it's deported 152,000 people since January 20th. The president told Fox most of those deportations have involved violent criminals.
But we have some very bad ones. We had 11,088 murderers. Half of them killed more than one person. These are rough, bad people. We want them out. And that's mostly our focus.
According to DHS, the process is already underway. An illegal immigrant recently utilized the program to get a ticket for a flight from Chicago to Honduras. Additional tickets have already been booked for this weekend next. I'm Clayton Neville.
A new effort to save tens of thousands of jobs at the Department of Health and Human Services is being led by nearly 24 state attorneys general. Details from correspondent Rich Johnson.
The AGs, Democrats from 19 states and the District of Columbia, say the Trump administration, directed by HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., broke federal law and violated the Constitution's separation of powers in making those cuts.
HHS, a critical agency created by Congress, which comprises, as I said, 1/4 of the federal budget, has effectively been dismantled.
Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Nerona in Providence, where the suit was filed on Monday. From her office in Albany, New York AG Letitia James issued a video statement in which she listed just a few of the vital programs the White House has cut.
They slashed reproductive health offices, wiped out the disability services teams, and fired the entire team that runs the low-income home energy assistance program, and they eliminated testing for lead poisoning in children.
Nerona recalled the hundreds of thousands of Americans who died at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic.
They're dead because we weren't ready. They're dead because we didn't have enough equipment to take care of Americans. They're dead because we didn't have enough respirators. They're dead because we weren't prepared. And Americans are going to be dead going forward if we cut HHS the way we are doing and we're not prepared for the next healthcare emergency.
HHS has not commented on the suit. In past statements, though, Kennedy has defended the cuts as a move to streamline public health and reduce redundancies. I'm Richard Johnson.
One of the 10 prison guards charged in the beating death of an inmate in a New York prison has entered a guilty plea. Correspondent Katie Clark has been following the investigation.
A man who was serving time in the New York prison system was killed by prison guards. In December of last year, Robert Brooks, an inmate serving 12 years, was transferred to Marcy Correctional Facility in upstate New York, located about 200 miles northwest of New York City. 10 corrections officers are accused of beating him to death while restrained in handcuffs. The incident was caught on camera. Christopher Walrath, the first officer to plead guilty to first-degree manslaughter on Monday, faces 15 years in prison. He could otherwise face life in prison if found guilty of the second-degree manslaughter charge. Walrath admitted to participating and lying about his role in Brooks' death. District Attorney William Fitzpatrick believes that Walrath's guilty plea may inspire the other guards to plead guilty as well. 6 guards were charged with murder, 3 workers charged with manslaughter, and 1 with evidence tampering. 3 workers have not entered pleas yet. Christopher Walrath will be formally sentenced on August 4th. Brooks' family filed a federal civil rights lawsuit naming 17 defendants. I'm Katie Clark.
Among the stories we're covering next, machinists on strike, and which nation is luring away U.S. scientists. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. Reports that interest rates may soon change as the Federal Reserve continues to meet. On how your wallet may be affected, here's Correspondent Sagar Meghani.
The Federal Reserve is likely to defy President Trump and keep its benchmark interest rate unchanged this week. The president's been urging Chair Jerome Powell's Fed for weeks to make borrowing cheaper.
The Fed really owes it to the American people to get interest rates down. That's the only thing he's good for.
The president's suggestion 2 weeks ago that he could fire Powell roiled markets before he said he has no intention of doing so. Still, both he and his Treasury chief argue rates should come down, with inflation steadily cooling. Powell's been saying for weeks the Fed wants to see how the Trump tariffs impact the economy before making any moves.
We do not need to be in a hurry.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The family of an Ohio man say deputies and jail medical staff should be criminally charged in his death. Correspondent Jennifer King explains.
25-year-old Christian Black died in March after being restrained in a Montgomery County jail in Dayton, Ohio. His family and their attorneys say that after Black became unresponsive, deputies who piled on him and medical staff stood by for several minutes without trying to save his life.
These officers didn't do anything to what they were supposed to do here. They know better. They should do better.
Family attorney Robert Grisham.
We don't have to think any further than George Floyd to know how positional asphyxiation works.
The coroner's office ruled that Black's death was a homicide, likely from positional asphyxia. Black was arrested after police say he crashed a stolen car. Video from the jail shows him yelling and banging his head against the door of his cell. Then deputies rush in, and 9 of them pin Black to the floor. He was wrestled into a restraint chair and then can be seen slumped motionless for several minutes before a deputy begins performing CPR. Montgomery County Sheriff Rob Streck said that 10 employees have been put on paid administrative leave, and a review would follow the criminal investigation. Audio courtesy WDTN. I'm Jennifer King.
A Boston city councilor has pled guilty to federal corruption charges after prosecutors accused her of taking most of an inflated bonus that she paid to a relative who worked for her. Tanya Anderson pled guilty to 1 count each of wire fraud and theft concerning a program receiving federal funds. In exchange, prosecutors dropped 4 wire fraud counts against the 46-year-old lawmaker. Anderson told her relative she'd give her a $13,000 bonus, which was more than twice as much as the combined bonuses she gave to the rest of the staff. That relative would later give Anderson $7,000 of that money. When she's sentenced, Anderson could face up to 20 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000 on each of the fraud charges. However, as part of her plea deal, the government is seeking a sentence of 1 year and 1 day in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release and the restitution in the amount of $13,000. The Ford Motor Company has put a price tag on how much it'll be affected by President Trump's tariff plan. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer has details.
Ford Motor Company says it expects to take a $1.5 billion hit to its operating profit from tariffs this year and is withdrawing its full-year financial guidance due to the uncertainty. Ford says that its net income fell by 2/3 in the first quarter. However, Ford and Tesla are expected to see a smaller impact from tariffs than GM and other automakers because they assemble more of their cars in the U.S. Last week, General Motors said it was bracing for a potential impact from auto tariffs as high as $5 billion in 2025. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
On strike, thousands of machinists after union negotiations break down. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports.
About 3,000 labor union members at engine maker Pratt & Whitney in Connecticut have gone on strike. They walked off the job early this morning after negotiations over wages, retirement benefits, and job security broke down. Union officials say a little more than 75% of the 2,100 members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers voted to approve the strike. Pratt & Whitney calls its latest wage and retirement proposal competitive, saying it includes an immediate 4% pay raise. The engine maker says it has no plans to resume negotiations. It says it has plans in place to maintain operations and to meet customer commitments. I'm Mike Hempen.
The European Union has launched a drive to attract U.S. scientists and researchers to Europe. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports.
The move comes after the Trump administration froze U.S. government funding linked to diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives. French President Emmanuel Macron told an audience at the Choose Europe for Science event in Paris, "No one could have imagined a few years ago that one of the world's largest democracies would eliminate research programs on the pretext that the word diversity was in the program." Alongside him, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU would set up a super grant program of about $566 million.
This will help support the best and the brightest researchers and scientists from Europe and around the world.
Last month, hundreds of U.S. university researchers had National Science Foundation funding cancelled to comply with President Donald Trump's order to end support to research on diversity, equity and inclusion. I'm Karen Shamas.
Messaging apps used by White House officials have been in the news of late, but now one of them has paused their service due to a hacker gaining access to sensitive data. America in the Morning's tech correspondent Chuck Palm has more.
Telemessage, the unofficial app used by former security advisor Mike Waltz, is investigating a potential security incident and suspending all of its services out of an abundance of caution. Telemessage is based on the popular security-encrypted messaging software called Signal, which was used by a group to share real-time updates on U.S. military action in Yemen. Following weeks of controversy over the app, last Wednesday, Waltz was seen using the Telemessage app during a cabinet meeting, and Waltz was ousted the following day. Further concerns were expressed when the security of Waltz communications were further heightened when it was reported on Sunday that a hacker broke into Telemessage backend and intercepted some messages. And for additional intrigue, 404 Media site said the hacker had provided them with stolen material, some of which that the news site was able to independently verify. 404 Media went on to say that none of the cabinet members' messages were compromised. You can find me at chuckpalm.com.
In with Tuesday Sports, here's our Robert Workman.
NBA playoffs on Monday, 2 conference semifinal openers. In the East, the Knicks rally from down 20, running down the Celtics 108-105 in overtime in Boston. Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby each had 29 points, and Mikal Bridges stole the ball from Jaylen Brown in the final second of OT to ice it. Coach Tom Thibodeau.
I thought it was a great team win. We started well, then we fell into a hole, then we fought our way out. And then we made tough plays down the stretch.
Boston missed a playoff record 45 of 60 shots from three-point range on the night. In the West, the Nuggets erased a 14-point deficit in Oklahoma City to defeat the top-seeded Thunder, 121-119. Nikola Jokic, 42 points and 22 rebounds, one of 3 double-doubles in the game for Denver, along with Christian Braun and Aaron Gordon, who hit the winning 3-ball with 3 seconds left. So the lower-seeded team has now won on the road in every semifinal series opener, including the Pacers over the Cavaliers on Sunday. Stanley Cup playoffs, second round. In the East, the Maple Leafs held off the defending champion Panthers 5-4 in the first of that best of 7. William Nylander scored twice in the first period. Toronto took a 4-1 lead into the third at home, but had to hold on. Also last night, the New York Islanders won the NHL draft lottery, moving up 10 spots, the biggest move ever, snagging their first overall number 1 pick since 2009. 4 of the last 5 lotteries had been won by the last place team, including the Sharks last year. San Jose gets the number 2 pick this year. Baseball, the Padres scored all of their runs in the 8th inning to upend the Yankees 4-3. Manny Machado had a 2-run double. Xander Bogaerts followed with a 2-run single. The first place Dodgers got long balls from Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman in a 7-4 win over the Marlins. Ohtani's shot measured at 117.9 miles per hour off the bat. That's the hardest hit homer this season, while Freeman's was number 350 of his career. A.J. Smith-Shawver took a no-hitter into the 8th inning, leading the Braves over the Reds 4-0. Santiago Espinal's 8th inning leadoff single to center, the only hit Cincinnati got. Royals blanked the White Sox 3-0. Cole Reagans and the Gippers scattered 6 hits. That's Tuesday Sports.
Requiring more of your silver? The silver screen. That story and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Well, some movie making might get more expensive with newly announced tariffs. Entertainment correspondent Kevin Carr explains.
On Sunday, in a social media post, President Donald Trump said the American movie industry was, quote, dying, and he would authorize a 100% tariff on any movie made outside of the United States. Later, Trump spoke to reporters about the idea.
Other nations, a lot of them, have stolen our movie industry, and I'm saying if they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, and we should have a tariff on movies that come in.
No details were given about how these tariffs would work, leaving Hollywood with many questions. Would they be levied on production companies and services, or as an upcharge at the box office? Would foreign films exported to the United States, like the Oscar-winning Parasite, count? Or would it target American productions that film in international locations like this summer's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning? And how would it work for animated movies and visual effects-heavy blockbusters that outsource work overseas? Would television, which often shoots internationally to take advantage of tax incentives and rebates, be included? California Governor Gavin Newsom released a statement on Monday saying the president has no authority to impose tariffs under the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. However, he also said if the administration had a more detailed proposal, he would review it. On Monday in the Oval Office, Trump appeared to walk back some of his claims a little bit.
And I'm not looking to hurt the industry. I want to help the industry. But they're given financing by other countries. They're given a lot of things. So we're going to meet with the industry. I want to make sure they're happy with it.
I'm Kevin Carr.
Jury selection has begun in the case of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Following proceedings, correspondent Julie Walker.
Combs's hair is now gray, and so is his goatee. He wore a sweater over a white-collared shirt and gray slacks, which the judge is allowing rather than jail clothing. Combs made mention of how nervous he was when telling the judge he needed a bathroom break. The judge told several dozen prospective jurors the case would last around 8 weeks and that there is one defendant, Sean Combs, but he's also known as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, PD, and Love. For some reason, Puffy was left out. Combs's court case won't be broadcast live because federal courtrooms don't allow electronic media inside. Opening statements along with the start of testimony are expected next week. Julie Walker, New York.
And that's our show for today, Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.